Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of the Warhoundcast. I'm joined by three guests today. Regular Max,
Howdy.
semi-regular Dennis,
Hello.
and first-timer James.
Hello.
And we're here today to talk about stuff, mostly of the 40k stuff. Given there's been a FAQ and a chapter approved, and some points changes and all that chisel. Thought we'd have a look back at the most disappointing chapter approved ever.
Way to kick the conversation off.
Yeah. I mean, to be
Am I
fair,
wrong?
it is the elephant in the room, isn't it? There was less useful information in here, and I've had to pay for it, much to my chagrin. And the FAQs had tons of really useful information in them were free. So, go figure.
Yeah. If they'd swapped the books around, I'd have been happier buying it.
Yeah.
It's mental. And the stupid thing is, because it's print, and because of all the supply chain issues they've had, all the points updates they've made for things that were problem units 6 months ago, before Drukari, Admech, etc., all dropped, just aren't that big a deal anymore. So, for stuff that's got more expensive, so it's just baffling that they insist on sticking to. Okay, it's not the most sustainable hobby in the world, given the amount of plastic we all buy and then chuck out from the sprues. But at least with the books, at least make it digital. I just don't get it. Especially
for a regular book, right? A book that you set up to be updated literally on annual basis, following the exact same template.
Yeah, and the other thing is, they did a digital version of the Munitorum field manual in January. So, clearly they're set up to do it. I just don't understand why I have to pay for this when I paid for the original book that had the points in it that they've now changed.
Yeah. It's a little disappointing.
But the biggest problem, right? The thing that is the most annoying is that they didn't even change the front cover. It's literally the same with a different year on it, and it's not ring bound.
No,
What?
Any of the missions.
Yeah, that really annoyed me. I was really hoping to see some new.
Because some of the missions aren't great, right? Some of them are absolutely fine. And to be honest, I haven't played enough games really to have played all of them. But there were a couple of in there that are a bit meh. So I mean, yeah, absolutely mental. They could have done a 2-page PDF with the change to the secondaries and called it a day. Honestly.
Well, they could have just reprinted the secondaries and released them as a standalone PDF, and or release them via the update on their app.
Yeah,
that would have probably done the job. But then, of course, we don't buy the book.
We don't. Yeah. I need 2 pages from the book to go with the book I've got from last year, which I'm now going to throw out. Anyway, let's talk about more positive things.
So, should we talk about roughly what's changed then?
Yeah.
And should we start roughly with the points, given the secondaries got tweaked, but I didn't feel like anything massively changed the soul of what anything was doing. They just kind of got rounded up.
I think the secondaries, basically, they got rid of all the kind of ones that were basically you do it and you get X amount of points, or you don't do it and you get no points. All of them are scale, so you'll get some points for doing a bit of it and more points.
Yeah, which generally speaking is a good change. I like that.
Yeah.
I think things like sorry, well, you said let's talk about points first.
I think it was just because Euan said that the secondaries hadn't really changed much, but that was kind of the major change to them.
Yeah, no, I do like it. Things like deploy scramblers. What's that called now? They changed that to retrieve.
Oculus data, I think it is.
Yeah, retrieve Octarius data. That's right. Yeah, I like that because you're basically much more likely to get 4 to 8 points, and it's going to be really hard to max out 12 points.
Yeah,
which is much better than 10 or nothing.
Yeah. It's a shame that because it used to be quite fun to catch people out with that where you just sit 3 units in your deployment zone, and they had some deep striking scramblers, and you're like, cool, you're just never getting there, and you've got to run through my Death Guard army to get there, which is easier said than done. But yeah, should we start with Necrons, given we got Dennis on? What were your broad thoughts?
There were some really good things. Like, I'm really glad that Doomsday Arcs went down to 170. I think they were 190 before, so it's a pretty substantial drop. They really needed it. I still don't think they're worth their points. I know there's probably a ton of people that disagree with me because there's lots of good things about them. Quantum shielding's amazing as a rule. The Gauss flare guns on them are probably really the best thing about them. I just think the Ghost Arc is a better point vehicle, and it repairs warriors. It just a random number of shots, and then the random damage makes it really not a good competitive choice. But I really appreciate them going down because they really needed to. So that was good. Interesting to see destroyers going down. I don't know if they're worth taking still, but it's the most reliable heavy damage gun that Necrons have access to. So now that they've dropped 10 points, that's interesting. I think a unit of 3, and you can only take them a max of 3, now goes up to 180. So, that's slightly more expensive than a Doomsday Arc, but if you're taking it for the big gun, then it's much more reliable damage. So that's interesting. I'm not sure what to think about the Immortals, like the Tesla going down to be the same. The Tesla version of Immortals going down to be the same as the Gauss is cool. But with so much stuff that is now high armor saves or stuff that ignores AP1 or AP0 is just really tough to deal with at the moment. It doesn't. So even though Tesla Immortals around the Silent King could be pretty obnoxious, if you're getting like 2 full units, rerolling all hits and Teslaing on 6s, that could be pretty brutal. But actually, most things you'll be shooting are still only taking a handful of wounds from that.
And Tesla's nowhere near as good as it was, just because you cut its unmodified 6s now, because that was the thing with them before. You used to just get ridiculous number of hits.
Yeah, and the odd thing, like the Tomb Blades, so the bikes, right? You could give them the Gauss weapons or Tesla, and they were from the get-go the same points. But for some, and they are also core, so they received the same buffs as Immortals. But for some reason, they deemed the same gun on Immortals as worth 2 extra points. I never understood why. I really didn't think it was already a good enough choice because it has a shorter range and no AP. So the possibility of additional shots just was already a trade-off with the lack of AP and the shorter range compared with Gauss. So I thought it was good enough as a kind of a choice. It never made any sense that it was more expensive. So yeah, that was really the only things that stood out. I desperately hoped that the Forge World heavy construct, the Seraptic heavy construct, would go down in points from the ridiculous 650 points, but of course it hasn't. It's still ridiculous 650 points.
It's basically just as good as a Knight, that thing, but another 140 points, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Less good than a Knight because it has a max of 5 up invuln. You can't make any better.
I was So, I mean, I was looking at the list from the last time we played, Dennis, that you had, and you're paying 10 points extra for your Entropic Lances, which, frankly, for a handheld Dark Lance, you can pay that, and then 10 points extra for the Command Barge. But that was kind of it in terms of the changes.
Yeah, for that particular list, I've just gone up. Nothing dropped from that version of the list. Everything's just gone up. But Actually, I'm okay with the Entropic Lancers going up 10 points because I think it is a clearly better version of the gun the Chronomancer can take. So it doesn't make sense that it costs the same as the whatever the other one is.
I am disappointed that Scarabs haven't gone up.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah,
it's good. Nothing really jumps out. I don't think. It wasn't really. I think they could have made some more. Generally speaking, I still think Necrons are quite overpriced compared to a lot of the stuff that's out there now, because their rules really have a lot more restrictions on them, like on the synergies than say Drakari or Admech or Marines. So it's much harder to make it all work together. And because the units are so expensive and the characters are so expensive, I was hoping to see a few more point drops. But yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think of the 9th edition books, I think it's fair to say that Necrons are currently the weakest. I actually really like their power level and their internal balance, but they don't have. I think Warriors actually are just the best troop choice in the game at present, but there's not a lot of stuff around that's particularly great. So the Doomsday Arcs becoming cheaper, especially as like damage 2 isn't quite as valuable as what it was because of how Death Guard have impacted the meta. And I think a lot of times you kind of want damage 1 or damage D6 to kind of get around that -1 damage. And I think that therefore the Doomsday Arcs being erratic but very powerful on the upswing is quite a big buff to Necrons. At least the lists I've been playing have been very warrior centric and quite close range, and that gives them another angle.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just like from a competitive point of view, it's really hard to justify because you would never take one Doomsday Arc because it's so unreliable. So you're probably taking 2, and then you're paying 340 points for what on average ends up being probably about 6 to 7 wounds on a non-advanced vehicle. If you take into consideration the random number of hits, and then you've got random number of shots, then you've got a hit, then you have to wound, and then you have to do random damage. So, yeah, I don't think it's good value for money, but you're right that most of Necron shooting is really quite short range. But that's why I think that if you're taking it purely for the utility of a really tough vehicle that can pump out a whole bunch of like bolter type shots, I think the Ghost Arcs are actually much better because they do that, and you're not scared about moving them because you're not losing on your big gun shooting at its full profile, and they'll be great at tagging units. They just as tough, just as many wounds, and they can repair your warriors. And in a pinch, when your warrior unit is running to 10 or lower, you can just put them back into there. And for big guns, I just think they're probably better options. Like I think destroyers are now probably a really better alternative to a Doomsday Arc because they do 3d3 damage. They naturally reroll ones to hit, and so for 10 more points, you get guaranteed 3 shots at 36-inch ranges. You reroll ones to hit, and every wound that goes through, you do 3d3 damage.
And can the heavy destroyers use the reroll wound strat, or is that the mini destroyers only?
No, they can. Yeah, they can. But because it's now 2 CP, isn't it? And you just reroll wounds, so it's 2 CP to reroll potentially 3 wounds, which in a pinch could be well worth it.
Yeah, against most things, I guess you're probably just better off saving a CP for rerolling one of them rather than spending 2 to reroll all of them.
Because you're probably wounding at 3s, at best, unless you're shooting something with a rule that only limits it to wounding on 4s. If you're shooting other Necron Doomsday Arcs, you might want to reroll your wounds.
How have you been finding Necron sort of more generally in 9th?
Bit hit and miss. I love playing them in 9th. It's a different style of playing them. I think that it's a really good army. And actually, when at the beginning of 9th, I was really pleased with them. I thought they were, like you said, Euan. I think their power level was really nicely balanced. There were lots of good units. Nothing seemed completely overpowered. 20-man warrior blobs what seemed a little ridiculous, but now seeing all the firepower that's out there, when you can have what is it, rangers, the AdMech unit
Yeah,
that you can take. I mean, they can just wipe out a unit of warriors like in the blink of an eye. It's not even without even breaking a sweat. So yeah, and I know Max and I played a few games, and my big worry was how to deal with Mortarion, but it seems that having a Catan in your list does that.
Yep.
Comfortably.
I'm over him.
Well, Mortarion.
Well, all of it. I'm just like I've put so much effort into that Death Guard army, and I don't know how to make it work. Like I don't. Yeah.
I think there's just too many things I get around it now. Like the volume of fire and the number of number of units you get in something like Drukhari or Admech. Just insane.
And the problem is, I find the damage output from it is just so meh. Like you talked about AP0 before, and unless I'm playing a particular plague company and you're very close to me, or I've got stuff very close to you, I'm generally lots of AP dash if I'm firing bolters or yeah, it's just, I don't know. I mean, you're a much more experienced Death Guard player than me, Euan. Like, how are you making? I appreciate we're veering wildly off topic here, but how are you making Death Guard work?
So I've had a reasonable number of success with them, but I have kind of just changed up my list because worried about AdMech. And as you said, it's specifically those units like Rangers, which are just going to go through Terminators and bodies. So what I was actually running up until this chapter approved was it was Typhus's company.
Yeah.
And just running lots of Poxwalkers and going, if you get close to me, I will absolutely annihilate you with some dirt cheap units. So I think the list I was running was I had one big Terminator blob, 2 Plague Burst Crawlers for While We Stand We Fight, 3 Death Shroud units, the Blight Spawn. I was dallying with the Tallyman then, a Lord of Virulence, and a Plaguecaster. And that just went, cool. I'm not going to worry about shooting you, really. I've got enough with the 2 Plague Burst Crawlers to threaten things that will kill my Poxwalkers efficiently. So Redemptor Dreadnoughts have been quite popular in my local meta, and sort of being able to threaten things like that was key. And then anything that gets close, you just annihilate with mortal wounds. Problem being...
How many Poxwalkers are we talking?
I was running 80. Wow. I was,
Yes.
and that's down from 100 that I was running before then.
Wow.
Mostly on TTS, the 100 to be fair.
I was going to say, have you actually painted 100 Poxwalkers?
I have 80 and a couple of spare Poxwalkers, which are all painted. So yeah, I remember when I first came to Woking. I think my first game was against Dennis actually. And I had Chaos Horde, which was all Zechen with a couple of bloodletters. And I've basically gone back to that, but I'm playing it with Death Guard instead. I'm going, right.
Oh, those pink horrors. I still have nightmares about that horde. That was just when you first open up with the volley of their flamers, I was like, what on earth are you doing? This is insane. You're just like taking chunks out of my army, left, right, and center. I think that was when your Bloodthirster smashed through the thing.
That was Demon Prince of Khorne with the
special
I think Skull Reaver, something like that. Yeah, and it one shot your big Canoptic Titan.
Yeah. Well, it has a pretty good track record of getting one shotted by almost anything in the game. I think Max one shotted it with a bunch of Black Knights.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Control Alt Delete.
Yeah. No, I mean, so Necrons. I think they're I like it. I think it's a great book. I like it's really fun to play, and I like that you can build lots of different versions of armies. Like it's not one track army like it used to be. You know, you can actually have really different builds. It's just that in the current meta, I don't think they're competitive particularly. But it is a really good army to play, and I think a lot of the games I played, I managed to win, and there are just some games that I have no way in hope of winning against some armies at the moment. But yeah, that's what it is.
But yeah, going back to Death Guard, seeing the AdMech stuff and things have wanted me to have more firepower. So I have gone to I think it's the Inexorable, which have the -1 AP contagion, and added in 2 Contemptor Dreadnoughts in effect instead of the Poxwalkers.
Have you
and
got them
2
with twin Volkite?
Yeah, and 2 Blight drones, just with the melee thing, to go up and bully mid-table, hopefully. And I've played sort of one game with that exact list and a couple with similar things to that, and that's been working well. I rather heavily beat a GSC person, just shot him off the table. Not that shooting GSC off the table is a particularly notable feat, but
I was gonna say you're really stretching yourself there.
yeah.
How have you found that list against like a gunboat heavy Drukhari army where there's just like 1 million Dark Lancers shooting at you?
I haven't played that list against Drukhari yet. After I played a bunch of Death Guard, I went back to play a bunch of Craft Worlds, and they wreck Drukhari. At least if they go first, because the Night Spinner, and I went back to running support platforms, but with the Shuriken Mortar, I forget the exact name of it, and that just does horrendous damage to them. I've been really impressed by them, both against Drukhari and against Necrons, actually. Still not really impressed by anything that goes to the middle of the table with Craft Worlds, but guess if I was running them competitively, I'd soup in a bunch of Drukhari. But yeah, should we talk about all the factions super quickly that basically had 0 points changes? So Chaos and Imperial Knights had actually none. Death Guard had none as well. New book wasn't really expecting that. Drukhari technically had none and then got some. Grey Knight, Harlequins technically got 1. Orcs got technically 1. Tau got technically some, but not really. Thousand Suns got technically, well, they got a Land Raider debuff that everyone did. Buff that everyone did. And the Land Raider will still be ignored by everyone.
I have to say the Tau points update has to be the biggest middle finger to Tau players. one point down on a Riptide. So that's a maximum of 3 points that you've saved in your army.
I don't even know why they do that. Like, what is the point? Because it's not a model that you take in any volume. So why drop it by 1 point?
To make it a nice round 260.
It is, yeah. They did the same thing with the Solitaire that made it 102 to 100. It's like, cool. Well done, guys.
Still not taking it.
Solitaire's not bad, but
it's just.
But they're not as good as another Troop Master for the points. But
yeah, not surprised not to see. I mean, Orcs are getting a Codex, right? So I guess we'll just see what that looks like. I am really curious to see what Toughness 5 boys going to be cost to that. It'll be pretty fun.
Yeah.
What do you guys think on Toughness 5 boys?
I like how they're differentiating tough for different armies. So I like that some units, like Drukhari, got an Invan. Death Guard, they had -1 damage inbuilt into them. And so the Orcs, they've gone for extra toughness. Marines, they went for additional wounds. So I like that there's different ways and therefore different angles of attack if you're trying to target a particular faction. I'm a little worried about it. More so the AP buff than the toughness, but both are scary.
I
Yeah.
think it's quite thematic because I mean they're wearing rags, so they don't have an armor save. But so you can imagine them getting hit. That's the weird thing about Warhammer. Like technically, surely the armor save should happen before the
The to wound roll.
wound roll.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that would make things quite problematic. Or would it?
Well,
Anyway.
it means that you roll, then I roll, then you roll.
Yeah.
So it takes more time, and mathematically it's the same. So
yeah. But anyway, you get the point. But them being toughness 5, that tells me it gets hit by a bolter shell that takes a chunk out of its flesh because it's gone straight through the armor because there is no armor. But the orc doesn't care because he's just going to keep on trucking. So I guess that's kind of how you kind of visualize it. And the thing is,
just walk it off.
Yeah, just walk it off. And what it's great against is armies that pay a premium for damage to weapons. So much as those that have damage to weapons have struggled into Death Guard, it's kind of the same deal, right? Because your heavy bolters have gone from wounding on 3s to 4s, and orcs don't care that they're 2 damage unless they've got a 6-up feel no pain, I suppose. And so it kind of works. It kind of fits. The fact that they're tougher than a Space Marine, a genetically engineered super soldier, is a bit weird. But then because that makes them then 2 points tougher than a regular human. But maybe orcs are almost twice as tough as a human.
Well, yeah, in stories they are. They can go sort of in a fist fight against a Marine. They hold their own and sometimes even come out on top, right? So and it's not that they can't take the damage. I think it's that they take the damage and don't care, which is, I guess, what you said is I think that toughness is representing. Yeah, I like it. I think it's kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of cool, but I imagine it's going to create like weird dynamics with matchups with different armies. Like if you think of something like Marines, right? The mass fire tends to be strength 4 or 5, so that's really going to hit them because now you're wounding on 4s or 5s with all of your mass
for days. That's probably why they put Talonmaster up.
yeah. Whereas like someone like Drukhari probably don't care because they're just poisoning you on 4-ups regardless of what your toughness is. So they'll
all 3-ups.
Yeah, it's still hilarious that you can poison Mortarion on a 3-up with the right company, but that's a side thing. Yeah, I hope orcs don't get orcs are surprisingly fast with their current book. To jump and advance and charge is really prevalent, and I hope as a non-orc player they don't keep all of those buffs, or at least they're much more limited. Because having 100 orcs right in your face turn 1, even if you build for that, is terrifying as a thought. But
do you think they'll keep the green tide strat?
I'd be surprised if they did, because they've been slowly going away from units from things like that up until Typhus's company got it in the Regiments of Renown, and you do pay quite a heavy opportunity cost for taking that regiment.
Yeah.
So maybe a like specific clan could have it, or as a probably one of the weaker ones, I'd hope. But I'd be surprised if they kept it as a overall strat. Look at loads of cool new strats. The general power level of strats does seem to have come down in 9th.
Yeah, because bringing back 30 T4 boys is one thing. Bringing back 30 T5 boys feels like
horrendous.
Obscene.
They might reduce the max unit size down. I mean, that's the other thing. It might go down to 20.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, the other thing to mention is T6 spikes.
Yeah, they're on the radar now.
Although again, Dark Eldar just don't care.
No,
they're still going to be real good None of us are Drukhari players, unless someone's picked them up without my knowledge.
No.
But it was nice to see them get general nerfs, especially the Dark Technomancer one.
Yeah, that needed to go. It's just too powerful.
But by and large, they're still really good because they had some Raiders went up, sure. Dressar went up, sure. Both are impactful nerfs.
Well,
they've still got such a deep book that, you know.
But then a Raider is still ludicrously way cheaper than like a Space Marine Impulsor. I know we've in our group, Dennis, and even like with the Necron, I forget the name. Ghost Art again. Like the points differential is insane.
Mm-hmm.
The Raider is just like I don't understand how they managed, because it's surprisingly resilient with the 5-up inbound.
Yeah.
And you can make it -1 to hit. Yeah, okay, it's going to cost you a CP, but given that your whole not a whole army necessarily, but it's such a big part of a Drukhari build, and to how they play, there's just such a great platform. And it doesn't matter that it can only take one gun, because the unit inside can shoot.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, right? Especially with Space Marines, like they've got rubbish transports that you can't shoot out of, that you pay loads of money for. Points for. I mean, you do pay loads of money for them, but you know what I mean. They're just awful.
Yeah, I still think it's well good for its points.
Yeah, I think it's fine for Drukhari to have arguably the best transports in the game, because that is very reliant in their fluff, much in the same way that I think someone like Guard should have the best artillery in the game. But there's a difference between having something very good that fits your faction and just something that's just bananas.
Yeah, and I think that was, broadly, I think the design of the Drukhari book is, with the exception of, some warlord trait and relic interactions aside, I think actually, it's a pretty well designed book. I just think, like, they shaved 25% of the points off the whole army. So you just get so much redundancy because you can take extra stuff. If you're trading on objectives, you don't really care because you can just throw more stuff forward.
Yeah, you trade up basically every time. Is the current problem you've got with them.
Yeah,
and it's so hard to put them in a spot where put them in a reactive spot. You basically need A, something that's quite fast, and B, something that can kill all their transports efficiently. Which is not an easy combination of things to have. And even then, they're just still really good. So
glad they clarified the ridiculous exploding the attacks on the succubus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that was so.
Here's something with 30 attacks and costs 60 points.
Joe, it's like, what? Whoever thought that was okay? How did that?
Yeah. I remember when one of the old demon weapons you could have for chaos meant you got I think it was three attacks base plus 2d6 attacks for having the demon weapon, which could hurt you, and that was too much. And now you've got something that had 30 attacks. It's just like, geez.
But it was more than that, wasn't it? It was like 42 or something.
I thought it was 15 and they missed and they got the extra 15, but I could be wrong. I heard about it more as a boogeyman than playing against it, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean,
I technically played against it, but I stayed about 300 miles away from it at all times.
Yeah, you can have that.
Yeah, that half of the board's yours.
So what do you reckon, guys, about the elephant in the room, the Space Marine, about their point changing?
I'm not a Space Marine player, but I was delighted to see the Apothecary change, because that has been a nightmare, especially in Dark Angels.
Yeah, I mean,
surviving Dark Angels Terminators just felt so bad. They're so nightmarish to kill. But
yeah. Well, I haven't even managed to get them on the table since the Codex dropped, but all of the Dark Angels lists that I wrote have immediately got worse, because Apothecaries went up and Talon Masters went up So my Raven Wing
both needed though massively.
Yeah, definitely. Although again, problem is I don't think I'm very good at writing lists because I can't seem to write one that I like or feels vaguely competitive. But for example, my all Ravenwing list is only about 24 models. Now it's going to be less than that. So that doesn't work. So again, back to the drawing board. But yeah, I agree. Definitely, the Apothecary was far too cheap for the sort of the utility you got out of them, the amount of points you got back, and you'll still get way more points back than you spend.
The thing is, it's still a perfectly competitive, solid choice that every Marine player will probably still take in their army.
Yeah,
it does at least give them pause for thought. If they're trying a very, I think before it was just such an auto take in every list, and now you're like, okay, maybe I'm splashing a few more vehicles, and I'm like, maybe I don't need it. But yeah, it's still a really good option.
But then my Raven Guard list went down quite a lot because I had lots of snipers.
Eliminators?
Eliminators, yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean, as Raven Guard, they're even better now, but I still don't think they're that great for other armies. I still don't think they reliably kill most characters.
No,
unless you're Raven Guard. I think as Raven Guard, you would easily kill the character.
Yeah, +1 to hit, +1 to wound. It's pretty tasty.
And that trick that they can do, I really like it. It's like, when they get charged and when your sergeant tries Overwatch.
So that's changed. So that's what they were. So actually, the new version of the rule is that if he has the instigator bolt carbine on the sergeant, they can move after they've shot. So it doesn't have an interaction with.
Sorry, you're right.
With the charge phase. So, and the problem is you then lose 33% efficiency on the unit because you replace their sniper rifle with the bolt carbine.
But does he still not do his thing where if he doesn't shoot, like he does the spotter thing where they get +1 to hit?
No, because their ballistic skill went up to ballistic skill 2.
Right, yeah. Okay.
So they're ballistic skill 2 base. So the good thing in Raven Guard is from turn 2, when you're targeting characters, they can move and still hit on 2s because of the +1. So yeah, they're cool, but the problem is it's just such low volume of shots. And I've got 2 with the sniper rifles and 1 with the Lance Fusils, and the Lance Fusils went down as well, and they're quite cool. It's a long range Thunderhammer, but again, it's only 3 shots on the unit, and it's only 6 wounds on the unit. So I mean, I had reasonably good success with Raven Guard in 8th. I haven't really tried them in 9th, so I couldn't possibly say, but it was never a very killy army. It was always about it could outscore because it was very mobile. But I wonder if that's the same now. I have played with them and got battered. Didn't I play Raven Guard when I played against you the first time in 9th, Dennis?
I don't. So.
No,
I don't think so.
No, I didn't. It was a different army that had some incursors in it that you chewed up and spat out turn 1.
Yeah. No, but the other interesting thing I thought was the Inceptors getting. I mean, essentially the bolter version went down and the plasma version went up. I think that makes the bolter version really actually quite interesting because they were already pretty good for their points, and now they're a really good utility unit.
Yeah, I would have Inceptors, the heavy bolter Inceptors in a lot of armies if I could take them. I think they consistently and probably are still overshadowed by the plasma variant. But I think that the heavy bolter is just a unit is still really good. I'd certainly love to have the option in Death Guard or something like that to have a unit that's can deep strike, mobile, and has a very reliable damage 2 weapon. That is core as well, slightly surprisingly. But
Are the assault bolters 2 damage?
No.
oh, are they not? I thought they were. I thought they were.
No,
Heavy bolter.
no, they're not heavy bolters. They're just strength 5.
Yeah, they changed, so they didn't get the heavy bolter treatment, despite
Yeah.
having, because they used to have essentially the same profile, strength 5 AP1, but
Well, shut
they
my mouth
didn't.
up then.
Yeah, I mean, if they were damage 2, they would be absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
Oh,
much
they would be a no-brainer compared to the plasma one variant.
Yeah.
You don't even need to overcharge them.
Please. We'll just absolutely hose your army down.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually surprised they increased the points on the. No, I wasn't surprised they increased the points on the plasma version. They clearly needed to do something, but I thought a much neater solution would just be to turn their weapons into a single weapon, rather than give them 2 separate guns. You know, like is it aggressors? They're both of their bolters are called the bolter gauntlets or something like that, and they just treat as one weapon.
But then weirdly, their flamers are treated as separate.
Yeah, true. But I thought that would be a neater solution, because the problem with plasma is that it's so easy to max out their shots every time you're shooting anything with like more than 5 dudes.
And
So
you
you'll
could
get
you could very easily make it a 2d3 shot weapon, because it's the only Space Marine unit in the game that has plasma exterminators. All the other plasma gun variants have different names, so you wouldn't have to change it on that and then change it on other things.
Yeah, true. Because I think that's what makes them like. Because other than that, you still have a chance of killing yourself on ones, and I think it's a pretty reasonable unit. You can't. They're expensive. It's just that it's too easy to get max shots on them. So when you're putting out 30 shots at strength 8 damage 2 from 5 dudes, that's not right. That's not AdMech level good.
Pop them in Dark Angels for the strength 3. Sorry, 3 damage.
3 damage.
I think we would be fine if they were strength 3, but yeah, damage 3 is a whole other thing. But yeah, I think Marines next one's got the most changes overall.
Which makes sense, right?
Yeah,
I mean, their earlier codex is in 9th.
Yeah, they're the oldest current books, aren't they?
Yeah, and other stuff they can change, but fiddling while Rome burns, because their codexes will come out, and that will just again completely invalidate this book.
Yeah. Oh, Blood Angel Sanguinary going up, didn't they? That was needed. I think they're still good.
There's like 2 points a model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their Dante went down, which is is he good enough?
I don't think so. It's interesting, but I think he's a bit gimmicky. Like their ability to do his strat for free. Yeah, I just think you can build a much better chapter master, custom chapter, with the access to the relics and the warlord traits. You can do something that's much better than Dante, I think.
I think it's so hard to build a killy special character, because the killy generic options these days with the ability to customize them are just so strong, not just for Blood Angels, but sort of across the board these days.
Yeah.
So unless you're a character with a seriously powerful aura, tend not to get taken many special characters, which I don't think is a bad place for them actually. But I can't think of many special characters in the new books that have really shaken up the meta outside of sort of big centerpiece ones, Silent King and Mortarion.
Drazar?
Drazar is a fair point.
And the Space Wolf guy, when he came out, what was his name?
Oh, Ragnar, yeah.
Ragnar, the dude, the slayer of all armies. That was insane.
But he got nerfed back into line in the 9th book. When he came out in 8th, he was just ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But Nid's got some quite nice buffs actually.
Yeah, they did.
A
lot of points reductions.
Yeah, Gene Stealers and Swarm Lord, the highlights of there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was immediately quite tempted to go and play them. And then I
Does
remembered I don't have any Hive Guard, and I probably want about 80 of them.
does that tell us that we might be waiting a while for the NIDS Codex?
I really don't know what it means, because NIDs are in a below average spot, I'd say.
Well,
Wouldn't say they're
yeah.
I wouldn't say they're bottom tier. They're kind of in that sort of lower middle bracket. But there are, Gene Stealer Cult, Thousand Suns. Well, this isn't Thousand Suns, but Gene Stealer Cult, Tau, and like in a much worse position, and got basically no changes. So it's really hard to work out what they were actually thinking by like, cool, we're going to give Nid some attention, but not some of these other ones. And maybe GSE are like next after Thousand Suns and Grey Knights or something. That's why they didn't bother. But it is really hard to work out what they were doing here. Especially as because quite a few factions, they could be like, cool, we're going to update a lot of points here rather than just a handful.
Did Custodes get any changes?
Yes, I think they mostly went up. Or most of their Forge World stuff did.
No, everything they got went down.
The Telemon went up. Sorry, that's
what. The Telemon went up, but the Caladius went down, and Wardens went down, and the aforementioned Land Raiders that nobody is still going to take.
Did the Guard go down, particularly the version with the Storm Shield?
No, they're the same. I think the Wardens are an elite version.
Yeah, Wardens will see no play because they're not the Terminators and not the basic dudes. So there's not really a reason to pick them.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but the weird thing is, the Custodian Guard, are they the only unit left in the game that has the 3-up Invuln Storm Shield?
That's specifically a Storm Shield? I think so.
Well, it's because they get a Storm Shield and then they get to add one to invulnerable saving throws. If they're a pure Adeptus Custodes army.
Yeah. Which I'm sure will change when they it's not even pure Adeptus Custodes. You can't be part of a Imperium detachment, which you can't even take these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't be upset when 3-up Invuln on Custodes goes away, but they'll get something else instead.
But then they have so few models. I almost don't. Like, the only time I played Custodes in 8th was again with my Raven Guard. And again, my point about it wasn't a very killy army, but I was kind of everywhere, so I could control the objectives. Kind of Custodes were the perfect example of an army that played incredibly badly into me because I didn't have to engage them where I didn't need to. I sniped out his characters and just tried to avoid the rest of it, just sort of chipping bits off it. So I don't think them having a 3-up Invuln, given how few models they have in the army, is the worst thing in the world. Especially when you've got Dark Elder armies running around with 101 Dark Lances that can re-roll a hit every turn, just picking them off at will. So I don't know. I think it's a fringe case. It's not like you've got a 50 models on a 3-up. If you had a Dark Angels army with 3-up Invulns where you could feasibly get sort of 30, 40 models with that kind of save, then yeah, I think that probably would be a bit of a problem. But with Custodes, don't know if it is, and if that's all you're taking, those custodian guard squads, then how much damage are you doing? Like how much of the board are you controlling?
Yeah, I think from a balance perspective, this is fine. You know, custodians have that at the moment, and they're probably mid-plus tier. I've always kind of felt quite strongly that I think if something's naturally big and tough, I'd rather not see it have a powerful invuln. I'd rather see it have it in a different way. If something is going to have a throw up invuln, I'd rather it's something like a demon or a harlequin, which is theoretically easy to wound and doesn't have a good armor save to rely on.
One interesting thing from the secondaries, right? Because I was looking at the is it Bring It Down, the one that you get points for vehicles on?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think most people would probably disagree with me on this, but I think it's just not a good balance, because it's you get like 1 point per vehicle that's 10 wounds or lower, and then 2 points for anything that's 3 wounds, 3 for higher. It doesn't feel like you can get enough points from armies that spam light vehicles, because the idea of the
so there is this one is against vehicles, and you've got the other one which is against hordes,
and then of course there's one against psychers and one against mechanic units. It's for any list that's a skew list or has gone all in on a particular type of unit. This is supposed to give you a reliable way of getting pretty high scores out of those.
The problem you've got is that would punish armies like Harlequins, who have literally one vehicle chassis, and it's pretty integral to how their army operates.
But does it punish them though? Because, like, all right, let's say your Harlequin list has 6 Skyweavers. You're getting 6 points if you manage to kill all 6. That doesn't seem strong. Even if you got 12 points after killing all 6, you're probably taking a whole game to try and kill 6. If you're killing those 6, you're not shooting the rest of the troops and whatever else is in them.
Yeah.
And it's still only 12 points.
And I think that's... Well, how many wounds are a raider? Did they go up to 11 wounds?
No, they're 10, so you only get a point for them.
You see, weirdly, I think you'd fix some of the issues with raiders by putting them up to 11. Give them an extra wound.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's like when a character goes from 9 wounds to 10 wounds, it's a horrendous nerf because you can suddenly shoot them.
Yeah. But that's what made me think of Guard, right? Because one of the cool, iconic things about Guard is they've got lots of tanks and artillery and all kinds of things.
One thing they did get out of the Grand Tournament mission pack is that now, if you take one super heavy auxiliary detachment, you get plus 2 command points. So it actually only ends up costing you 1 CP to take something like a Baneblade or I mean any other army for that matter that wants to take a super heavy. So if you want to take your monolith now, Dennis, it'll only cost you 1 CP rather than 3.
Yay!
Still not taking it.
No.
I mean, the Baneblade and their variants, they got that and they went down in points. I wouldn't be that surprised if someone taking a bunch of them did quite well, because no one's expecting to face that kind of list. And they're not helpless in combat either.
Yeah, but again,
unless you're Drukhari or Admech and you just kill 2 of them in a turn.
Well, even against them, like they do have a lot of wounds to chew through. It's probably entirely a who goes first game. Can your manticores kill enough raiders? But
they have no invuln. They have mediocre hitting ability. Anything that, especially going into Drukhari, and they target something and it's immediately going to be -1 to hit. They're just wasting half of their shooting. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, if I was playing Death Guard and came up against a bunch of Baneblades, I'm not sure I could deal with them. And I'm not sure I could tank 5 turns of them either. But
Yeah, probably not Death Guard. You're right.
But again, you're reducing damage, so
yeah, it is flat 3 to flat 2 though, so you're still killing anything that's not a Terminator very effectively, at least infantry wise. But yeah, I don't think triple Baneblade's going to suddenly be the new hot meta thing, but I think it might be scary, as taking any number of big super heavies can be.
But it costs you 6 CP, so I mean.
Yeah, but cards don't really have anything to spend their CP on.
And they have ways to recover them relatively easily too. You know, you're probably gaining 2 a turn.
Or have the option to, because you can only get back 1 a turn.
Yeah, well, plus if you
One a battle round.
Yes.
So
Chaos.
you're net -1, assuming you get all 5 of your CP back from various relics and all of the traits on that detachment. Yeah, I'm not convinced.
Chaos got some small but nice drops. I really like that Cultist went down.
Well, that was in rubbish. Does that take them in line with Death Guard cultists?
Yes, but currently you can still, they're still core inverted commas, and still have obsec, so they're technically the best cultists available.
They are living on borrowed time.
They're living on borrowed time, but they're fine at 5 points. They do exactly what you need, and if you're playing Chaos, you probably still take 3 squads of 10 of these and sit them in the back and hope they do nothing to fill your troops and fill the rest of your slots with something actually interesting. Venom Crawlers going down 20 points makes me really interested in them. Not sure they're great.
The spider looking thing, right?
Yeah.
That was pretty okay before.
Yeah, it's a nice little buff, I think. Like, could push them in.
And they're 10 wounds crucially, so they, to them and a Lord Discordant to get them to BS3 suddenly becomes quite interesting. Especially in something like Iron Warriors that have ways to buff them further and give them exploding fixes and the like. So yeah, something I'm definitely going to try out shortly. And I think lastly, Craftworld's got a couple of drops, which inspired me to try the Avatar of Cain, who dropped quite a bit, and I'm still not particularly impressed with. But that might be more of a lack of supporting cast. And the Wraith units went down a couple of points, and I still wouldn't pick. You compare a Wraith Guard to a Blade Guard, and you feel very, very sad. But the Night Spinner dropping was a welcome surprise, because they're already pretty good, and into a Drukhari / Admech metagame are very tasty. Even if they do struggle a little bit for Marines, but
yeah, they're a great platform. I love that tank.
Yeah, I've got them magnetized so I can have them as spinners or fire prisms, and I don't think I've taken the spinner turret off since I got it. Yeah, the fire prism was briefly very good when high wound, low armor tanks were a thing, i.e. the Redemptor when it came out. They could link fire and utterly annihilate one, and tank commanders as well, I guess. But given every other competitive vehicle is either light or has an invuln save, a fire prism just Oh, and Dark Reapers dropped some points as well, which is
nice.
Which is very nice. Most of the Eldar lists I've been running, all of the Eldar lists I've been running, I have always maxed out their heavy support slots, and have quite often taken double spin